Joining us right now is Frank Lund, strategist and pollster with FIL Inc. Also, Jeff Horwitt of Hart Research. He's a Democratic pollster. Good morning to both of you. Let's just to get your initial reactions, both to what the special counsel said itself, and then this sort of impromptu press conference that we saw after. Frank?
Well, Andrew, we've been through this before. I'm old enough to remember Ronald Reagan in the end of his administration. And he was significantly younger than Joe Biden at this point, and he wasn't asking for re-election at this point. What the special prosecutor said was to say that no charges should be filed. It was devoid of politics, of partisanship. He simply made an observation about the president and his capabilities. And the irony is that the president, Joe Biden, proved it in that press conference by how he responded to reporter questions. Even if you like the guy, even if you support Joe Biden, you can see it in everything that he does. And Andrew, your focus group last week said the same thing. It's not just about age, it's also about where things will go in the years to follow. So it's pretty indicting.
Jeff, indicting or not indicting?
Look, the big story from yesterday, as Frank rightfully pointed out here, is that a Trump-appointed attorney made a determination that President Biden shouldn't be charged with mishandling documents. That was his charge. The investigation is over. That's very different from what we're seeing, and as the attorney mentioned with Donald Trump's case, which is ongoing and includes obstruction of justice, which is not something that Joe Biden was accused of. So that's a fundamental difference, and that was really what the attorney was tasked with. The unfortunate reality here is that then the attorney donned his medical robe, which he does not have a degree for, is not qualified to address, was not his charge, and did a political hit job on Joe Biden, which is the unfortunate part here and where some people are focused. And I think we should be very mindful of why he did that. And the unfortunate reality is in today's MAGA Republican Party with Donald Trump, it's not good enough to tell the truth. You have to please Donald Trump.
Jeff, here's the thing I can't figure out. Just walk me through the Democrat positioning here. Because even if you think it's a hit job, let's just say it is a hit job. But at the same time, you know, there are moments where you see the president where he does seem, to be honest with you, frailer than you'd want him to be. And it appears that the Democrats and the Republicans, by the way, are playing chicken with each other, with two candidates that maybe neither side are particularly thrilled about, though it appears that there's a base on the Republican side that does seem to be a super supporter of Trump, and that the Democrats are unwilling to run anybody else, in large part because the president is the president, and here we are. But there is a question mark, and when you see people, Democrats, go online or come on television and say that they think that this president isn't up to the job, what should other Democrats be saying?
Well, look, there are concerns, as we've highlighted in our own NBC poll, that voters do have concerns about Joe Biden's age. It's also true that even among those who have major concerns about Joe Biden's age, he's getting a significant proportion of those voters who are voting for him, and which is unlike those who have major concerns about Trump and his criminal cases, that far fewer of those voters are voting for him. So yes, there are concerns. Yes, Joe Biden is going to have to address them. He is going to have to show that he's engaged and vigorous in defending his record and making the contrast here between the future of America that he wants and Donald Trump wants. That's all true. And he's going to have to do that. And I think, yes, last night was a start, and he needs to be better. But last night was a good start to that.
By the way, last night,
Frank, hold on. Jeff, I don't envy your position. I really don't. I know what you got to do. But do you remember Baghdad Bob? I mean, it doesn't help anyone when you say like that he's not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. Do you think any of us need to be medical doctors to see what's happening with the president? I mean, you're stuck with him. I understand that. But that doesn't mean you need to look into the camera and just say, the bottom line, the only story yesterday is that the special counsel is different than Trump, and he didn't get to do that. People just roll their eyes. It doesn't get you anywhere. You got to not, Frank. Is it me or I mean, is that what pollsters do? The pigs and the lipstick and everything else?
Well, Well, look, if
We're
I
not
may,
supposed
since you directed this to me, look, voters, as I just mentioned in the poll, voters are concerned about Joe Biden's age, and he needs to demonstrate that he's up to the job, just as Ronald Reagan.
It's impossible to demonstrate that. He's going to be president 3, 4, 5 years from now in a world with Vladimir Putin and President Xi. And go ahead, Frank.
People make decisions watching this show about the future of their money, about the future of politics. Last night, he got the leader of Mexico and the leader of Egypt wrong. Every time he speaks, he gets something wrong. We have nothing against him, but it's our job as pollsters to reflect exactly what's going on. And these questions this morning have not been about Donald Trump. And I'm sorry that my Democratic partisan colleague has instantly turned it into politics. The question is Joe Biden capable of running this country for the next 5 years? He makes so many mistakes, so many more than Ronald Reagan did. And I remember the charge against Reagan in 1984, just put them up side by side. And you see the difference between Joe Biden, and you're asking to give him 5 more years? The Hart people did an excellent NBC poll, and it demonstrated just how many people are concerned.
But Frank, part of the problem is that life is relative, and the choice is, and this is it. The choice, you could say that you don't think he's up for it for the next 5 years, but there's other people who look at former President Trump and say that that's an existential threat to democracy and to the world.
Still rather have Biden, right?
That's why, by the way, that's why Americans are so angry. That's why Americans are so frustrated with the future. That's why there's the possibility of a third-party candidate, because the public is saying, I don't like this guy. I'm afraid of this guy. I need something else.
Yeah, and look, Joe Biden is not the first president to mix up the names of foreign leaders. He's not going to be the last. I would say that also, again, this is, as we talked about, there is a contrast here. And Joe Biden also knows the difference between Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi. So there's a difference here. And voters are going to be making a decision here on the candidates who are on the ballot. And that is a choice between Joe Biden, where he's taking the country, and where Donald Trump wants to take the country back to.
Your poll, I read your poll. It is a great poll. The difference between people concerned about Joe Biden and his age and Donald Trump and his age is like this. Come on, Hart people. You're supposed to be the honest broker here. Acknowledge what your own poll said, and it was proven last night. Am I accurate?
Frank, and yes, that is true that more people are concerned about Biden's age than Trump's age. It is also, I'd love to finish my thought. It is also true that those who have major concerns about Joe Biden are still voting for him in a way that those who have major concerns about Trump's both age and his trials are not. And the other truth in that poll that we conducted is that if Trump is found guilty, that there's a significant shift to Biden. So those things also matter in the poll, and I think all that context matters.